questions, not statements.
There's your door prize.
I would just like to ask both of you to answer the question, how do you intend to bring more jobs to Maryland and to make our economy a more viable economy?
All right, I guess I'll start. And as I say, jobs are the issue, taxes are the problem, and spending is the cause. If we want jobs, if we need more jobs, the only way that we're going to get them is by reducing the tax and improving the business environment. And the only way you get there is by controlling spending. So you got to start at the cause, slow down the spending in Annapolis, then prevent them from adding new taxes, start rolling back taxes like the gas tax and the rain tax, and hopefully we can roll back some income taxes, put more money into our pockets, and then we'll have entrepreneurs be able to grow some jobs. So jobs are the issue, taxes are the problem, and spending is the cause.
Last Tuesday night, we had someone ask about if we lower taxes, what are we going to do with less revenue? And the truth of the matter is, you can lower taxes and it'll increase revenue. How many of you all remember the special session where they implemented the millionaire's tax? Did you look and see what happened? Mr. O'Donnell, did revenue increase or decrease? Revenue decreased. We can lower taxes, we can become more efficient in our programs, and still take care of the needs of the people of Southern Maryland and the state. And we don't have to do things the wrong way when we know how to do things the right way. We need an effective leader, someone who's proven that they can reach across the aisle and get things done. And I look forward to having that opportunity.
Okay, is there any other follow-up to that question? We'll be ready for the next question. Okay, the next number is 926142. And another
There's a
number
Longaberger
is-
basket in it.
Anyone? 926142. Okay, 926107.
I'd like to ask you, what would you do about the heroin epidemic we have going on? It's in the state, obviously in the county. What would you do to stem the flow of drugs coming into our area?
Well, that's really a timely issue. Here in St. Mary's County, I've led an effort to get the county to take a look at a nationally recognized program that's in 25 states called Drug Endangered Children. The local representative for Drug Endangered Children, Mr. Shea, and I have done the DEC Roadshow and gone around to about 8 or 10 different agencies and presented this program. So far, everyone's given us a thumbs up. We've got a couple more people to visit with, and then we're going to do a needs assessment, or actually an assessment to take a look at how we can coordinate our resources, get more bang for the buck, take the savings, and put it into prevention. This is a public health crisis, and I believe that the way to treat this issue is evidence-based programs and prevention.
My family's had plenty of problems with addiction, and we've seen this from the wrong end. And I personally got about 4 months of morphine when I was recovering from my plane accident, so I know how hard the issue is very personally. And we absolutely have got to understand the circumstances of folks that are using drugs and find ways to help them get them off. But it is not solely a public health issue. This is a serious problem about criminal law enforcement. And there are a lot of people whose homes have been broken into that we need to explain why is someone in their house robbing them to go buy heroin. So in my eyes, not only do you have to do the public health aspect of it and treat the people for the addiction and try to prevent the addiction, and I'm a parent, I'm worried about it, but we've got to really get out in front with law enforcement and go after this supply and kill it before it gets here.
Okay, then we'll go to our next question. 926116 or 926123. Okay, here we go. Okay, and the next question will be to 926083. You raise your hand, he'll come to you as soon as the microphone is finished.
My question is, why do you think Deb Ray is qualified to hold a state office?
I think mostly because she's running this, so we have to be nice to her right now. But Deb, I think, is a supremely qualified person. I think she's been working in the community for quite a while, and she has 20 years of service in the United States Air Force. As an officer, she retired as a major. She's not only learned leadership, she's practiced it extensively, and that's the kind of person, someone who's served her country, has gone home, and has been taking care of her kids. She understands leadership, she understands how to work with people, she understands how to work in the community, and she's done a fabulous job at it.
I think the best reason why Deb is eminently qualified to be a leader is that she's right on the issues. She represents the values, worldview, and viewpoints of the people of Southern Maryland much better than the incumbent does. And I think some of these races are really being marked by the fact that we have new issues, we have new viewpoints, we have a need for new leadership, and Deb is a shining example of that new leadership in Southern Maryland.
Thank you. Okay, our next question is coming from 926083. 926083. 926108. Yes, okay. Amy.
If you make it into office, what would you do to streamline the care our veterans are receiving as they transition back from being overseas?
I think there's a need here for accountability. One of the things that I've really focused on in almost 4 years of public life. We hear and see things out of the Veterans Administration, and then we see a lack of follow-through. One of the places where we're having success is the BOC coming into Charlotte Hall Veterans Home. We also need to take a look at programs and streamlining what the VA is already doing. I know the current Lieutenant Governor has done a lot of work in this area, a veteran himself. Also, there's been a convening of local elected officials, and a large program and sharing of information took place at the Charlotte Hall Veterans Home. Our Tri-County Council in Southern Maryland is doing a good job, and I think our local elected officials are more aware of the challenges than ever before.
That's a really good question. I haven't heard it put that way. I think that's a very interesting thought. And oddly enough, today, as I was walking across the hallway in my building, I met a guy who was dropping off his resume, and his first words are, "Hey, I just got back from Afghanistan and I'm dropping off a resume." We're seeing a lot of our veterans. There are tens of thousands of veterans. I want to say it's about 50,000 veterans in the state of Maryland. I think 20,000 or so are in the southern Maryland area. So we have a lot of them. I'm one of them. I did my bit back in 2002, 2003. So I have some understanding of that. When you come back, maybe you don't get a lot of help from the VA. What we know is that the state VA has not done a very good job of getting their services down here. And we need to put more of a push on getting the mobile facilities and mobile access down here so that veterans who are just returning, like a fellow that Myra works with over at Leonard Hall, who just came back as a National Guardsman, has immediate access to the resources and to the network of folks that are here and stepping up and helping.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, next question, 926117 or 926077. Okay, 926081. This is like doing door prizes. 926080.
Is there anybody else that would like to ask a question? Okay, we got a few. Good.
Dick's going to ask a hard one.
Well, it could be a hard one. In my lifetime, anyway, I believe that voter confidence in politicians is at an all-time low. I personally am disgusted. I'd like to ask both of you, will you look me and every Marylander in the eye and say you will not lie or obfuscate? And number two, besides your word, what specifically will you do to restore confidence in our government?
That is a superb question. And let me answer it this way. As a Marine officer, As a midshipman at the Naval Academy, you're taught the honor system. And you will not lie, cheat, or steal. And as a Marine officer, your word is not only your bond, lives depend on it. It's not a lawyer. I don't need someone there to interpret my words or parse my sentences. You don't need to go home and try to decide, was I using the past, present tense of the verb, or did I just mean what I said? So I absolutely guarantee everyone in this room, and everyone in Southern Maryland, and everyone in this state, that anything I say is an absolute, and I will back it up until I die. Because that's the kind of guy that I am. You can absolutely depend on me. Now, that also means that I will sometimes tell you what you don't want to hear. And that's what a good leader does, because a good leader is going to come out and tell you the truth and give you the facts and not just blow smoke.
Thank you.
I think this is a fantastic question. I'm going to answer it in two ways. The first way is, when I decided to run for county commissioner, one of the first things I did was call 2 or 3 of my political junkie friends and had them over to the house, and I said, I'm considering running. If I get elected, I need you to be my accountability partners. If you see me do things as a commissioner, vote for things that are not in the best interest of the people of St. Mary's County, you are to come to my house and kick my tail. Everybody needs accountability partners in politics. Second of all, I believe I have a rather unique approach to public service. Once you are elected, you are to do what's in the best interest of the people. That means that as a leader in this community, I have stood by myself at times doing what I think is right, and I will do the same thing in Annapolis.
Our next question is over here to the right.
The base that we live by here is a major economic driver, arguably the greatest economic driver for this region of Maryland. What would you do to ensure that it remains robust in the future?
That's a great question. I think one of the major problems that we have is that the folks in Annapolis too easily look the other way and don't recognize the importance of the national assets that are here in Southern Maryland. I will be a tireless advocate for keeping our transportation infrastructure in place, stopping the raiding of those transportation funds, and stop sending all the money up the road when we have dire transportation needs here. Tony has carried the torch, Delegate O'Donnell has carried the torch alone on that, and I intend to join him, and I intend to be tireless in making sure that the other elected representatives around the state understand just how important Southern Maryland is.
Do we have any other questions for our Senate candidates?
He would like to respond.
Oh, he had a chance.
I get a turn too?
I'm sorry.
You know, it's kind of good when the moderator says, he doesn't need to answer, we already know what he thinks. All right. Now, actually, what I would say is I think Tom Jarboe speaks quite articulately on this question and what needs to happen, particularly at the very lowest level with county commissioners, in engaging with the base leadership and making sure that we set the conditions here so that Pax River not only continues to thrive, but we survive the next BRAC cycle, because it's going to come. And transportation, I think, is a major part of managing the sprawl here. But I'll tell you what, there's a hot issue today. There's a hot issue today, and it is windmills. Because there are people out there who want to build 600-foot windmills all up and down the Chesapeake Bay. And let me explain that. 600 feet is 50 feet taller than the Washington Monument. Okay? 25 of those puppies up and down the Chesapeake Bay, inside the Atlantic Test Range, will cause not only a hazard to navigation, speaking as a guy who has a problem with vertical things, but it's going to...
Ouch! Let's take 2 more questions, and then we'll have it wrap up. Yes, the lady.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for your public service. The state of America's schools are atrocious. So, given the opportunity, would you vote for prayer to be put back in school, yes or no?
I think education is one of the top 3 priorities of government: transportation, education, and public safety. Those are the things that government must do first. As far as prayer in public schools, I think it's wonderful. And right now, the Supreme Court has actually come out and made a ruling just the other day that says we can include prayer in our public spaces. And I would love to see the opportunity for prayer to come back. Prayer and faith is so important to our families and to our lives and to our country. We can't underscore that enough. We can't undervalue that.
So is that a yes?
Oh, yeah, it's an absolute yes. And I'm sorry, I'm waxing philosophical. Yes would have been sufficient. But yeah, I think that this is a very, very important part of our life, and we need to bring our kids into it more. We need to make sure that they have more of an opportunity. It needs to be reinforced at every possible opportunity for them. Now, it has to be done in an appropriate way so that it's not discriminatory, so that we understand the very diverse faith nature of this country, and there's great ways to do it.
It's founded on Christian principles, so maybe we're being too tolerant because everything's it's a mess.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yes.
Okay, we'll have time for one more question. Any more questions for our Senate candidates? Here we go.
I was wondering how you can make Maryland more pro-life.
My approach to this issue is a lot like my approach to the Second Amendment, and I did speak with Mr. Lewis, and I think early we got off to a bad start. I think he thought I was willing to compromise. I think what we need to understand is we didn't get to where we are today in one fell swoop. We got there incrementally. And sending someone to Annapolis with proven leadership skills, who's been able to get stuff done in government at the county level, that kind of proven leader can get things done in Annapolis. And you start by finding common ground and building consensus. And I am willing to go and do the hard work of meeting those people, having those conversations, and finding the common ground and building the consensus. I believe that if human life has any value, then it ought to be protected.
A simple answer is that Texas recently passed a law that I think is a perfect model for us. And it only does a few things. Number one, it says that any facility that is authorized to do abortions must be certified to the same level as a surgical outpatient clinic. If you can go to a doctor's office and get a nose job, then an abortion clinic should at least rise to that standard. So that would be one part. The second part would be is that the doctor performing this must have admissions authority at the nearest 5 facilities so that we don't have women dying from late-term abortions in Germantown because the doctor can't get them into a hospital. And then the third part of it is to make sure that those facilities have access to a hospital with an emergency room that's within about a 10-minute drive. In case something goes wrong, they can get to a hospital and get to a higher level of care. So if we pass a law that is modeled on the Texas one with those 3 pillars, and we're taking care of the mother's health, I think that we can start turning the tide and get the momentum back.
Okay, now we have a minute.